We are back.
We're back.
Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. I don't know any more of the lyrics to that song because I'm not an LL Cool J fan. Chris, how are you? You are back from another trip.
I'm back from my trip, although headed on another trip tomorrow.
Are you allowed to say where you went?
I was in Donetsk, the hero city of glory, and the front line keeps moving. We're very happy to see that. I saw the great troops on the front. And of course, for those who don't know, today it just turned the 23rd. Is Defender of the Fatherland Day. So all thanks to the heroic army through history that continues to fight against Satanism and the Epstein regime in the West.
It is also my dog's birthday, who is a direct branch of Satanism. So I'll be fighting her while the Russian army's fighting Satanists in the East. Okay, I just want to touch on this Mexico thing really quickly. I won't get too into it because it's still developing, but from what we can decipher, and we're putting up posts and researching as we get them, you guys are seeing the massive violence that's erupting. Guadalajara appears to be under somewhat of a siege with very large-scale violence and road blockages. Here's where I'm at. We have in January, massive executions of cartel members of the CJNG begin. In February, they're designated a terrorist organization. Then they execute the head of it today, which creates a power vacuum. Somehow in 2 hours, this cartel was able to get up and avenge the death of their leader and put a major Mexican city under siege in less than 2 hours. I'm not buying it. Okay? The Americans come out and say, we helped. We gave intelligence. This is a great victory for us. What do the cartels start doing? Blowing up Costco's, gas stations, and terrorizing people. What has Mexico been doing lately? Sending food, Costco, and oil, gas stations, to Cuba. What weapons are the cartel members carrying? We're posting it. NATO weapons, flamethrowers that they got from the United States. So this situation is still developing. Always ask yourselves who benefits, what's really going on. Don't react. Now we have a foreign terrorist organization putting a city under siege. Why did the United States designate them a terrorist organization? So when they get out of line, they can invade Mexico.
Yep.
This sounds a lot like Giuliani.
Yeah, they've actually made the equivalent of this narco criminal syndicate with ISIS, right? They said that this is like the ISIS in our hemisphere. So interesting.
Yeah, but that's about all we're going to do. Well, obviously, maybe we'll have a space later, talk about it, an after space or something. But yeah, we do have a great guest today, so I'm going to hand it off to Chris because this is his baby. The Black Book, the Black Book.
Well, first of all, I think that this is a historic moment. First and foremost, let's introduce our distinguished guest. Nick Bryant, of course, is an investigator, researcher, a very profound journalist, wrote an excellent book on the Franklin scandal, and of course was the person to release the first little black book, the first phone book that was trying to be pawned off by, I think, one of the butlers or one of the servants of Jeffrey Epstein for money. And then the FBI got a hold of it, and Nick was able to release it with Gawker at the time. And what's historic about this moment is that I contacted Nick 6 years ago when I discovered the second book. And I told him, okay, look, I think I have a black book as well. Sent him a PDF, and he was like, it looks very similar. And we ended up authenticating it through the same editor from Gawker, who was then at Business Insider, now at the Wall Street Journal. But amazing to have both of us, I think, for the first time on air together. Quite a historic opportunity to be able to speak to you and for us to have a conversation as the two people who have helped to release this information to the public. So welcome to DD Geopolitics.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, at least face to face. We only corresponded by email before. So it's very nice to see you. So let me ask you first and foremost, because I know that all of us have been following this for many years. We've been called conspiracy theorists. We've, tinfoil hat, you name it. What do you make of what you are seeing with these document releases? What do you make of what's happening right now?
I think there's a couple of things. the Trump administration is not adhering to the Epstein Transparency Act because of all the redactions, and they're withholding, I think, at least 3 million documents. But I will say this. The documents that they're releasing, we need to decipher them. Some of them are, I think, disinformation or misinformation, are showing a darkness that I don't think Americans or a lot of other people have seen as far as some kind of super government or deep state or shadow state, whatever terminology you want to use without sounding too much like a tinfoil hat type.
Yeah, I think that you're right about this. So the government, of course, is not abiding by the Transparency Act. They're, of course, redacting. They're, doing what they do best, which is trying to hide and conceal. There are numerous documents. I mean, the number isn't quite sure, but they're saying somewhere in the vicinity of tens of thousands of documents that have still not been released. And especially in a time period, very interestingly enough, before, during, and a little bit after 9/11. What do you make of this? What do you make of the documents still to be released? What do you think that they show?
Well, these documents show a lot of darkness and a lot of corruption. So I'm surmising that those documents show a lot more darkness and a lot more corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be up to Americans, really, to make sure that the government adheres to the Epstein Transparency Act.
For sure.
They have not lived up to the letter of the law on that yet.
For sure. Let me ask you. So going back in time, let's take ourselves in a time machine of sorts. What was the story behind your release of the first book? What ended up happening? What was sort of the situation? How did it come into your hands? Can you tell us the backstory of that?
Sure. I started looking into a pedophile network in 2002, 2003 that ultimately became the Franklin scandal, a story of power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal. And I worked on it for 7 years. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of traveling. No one had ever written a book like that before. And I really felt like I had a high bar and I wanted to meet that. And I accumulated as much information as I could. I live in New York City and no one wanted to touch it. No one wanted to touch it as an article and no one wanted to touch it as a book. So we released the book and I think it's a pretty good book. I mean, it's selling more now than it's ever sold before.
Congratulations.
And I'd heard about what was going down in Florida. At that point, Epstein was just a lone pedophile. But I'd heard that multiple girls had been molested by him, but a grand jury had nonetheless concluded that he hadn't molested a single child. And that is the exact same thing that happened in the Franklin scandal. Scores of children were abused, much like with Epstein, but 2 grand juries, a state and a federal grand jury, found that not a single child was abused. So that interested me. And I went down to Florida and I do what I do. I start knocking on doors and talking to people. And I ultimately got the Black Book, and which was 95 pages, and it was all of Epstein's contacts. Mm-hmm. And under Epstein euphemistically put massage under the names, the numbers of victims, or over the numbers of victims and names and numbers of victims. And I started to call those numbers. And the first person I talked to was the mother of a victim, and the victim was in the room and the mother was talking to me. So it was kind of a strange conversation. But the mother had told me that her daughter had started getting molested by Jeffrey Epstein when she was 13 years old.
Oh my God.
And then I talked to someone else who said that they'd been flown around to a different state. And then I talked to someone who said that they'd been flown to the Virgin Islands. And we really didn't know about Jeffrey Epstein's Orgy Island at that point. And at that point, I was very confident that I had a network that was very much like the Franklin Network that I wrote about. And actually, Epstein is kind of, in many ways, a carbon copy of the Franklin Network. So I started calling Epstein's Inner Circle. And I got a hold of Sarah Kellen, who was one of his henchwomen that led hundreds of lambs to the slaughter. And she was telling me how hard the media had been on her. And I really couldn't really commiserate with her. And I think that she took that as kind of an affront. Mm-hmm. But it's funny, this latest tranche of documents came out, and I'm in it. They're talking about a journalist that's down in Florida looking around, and they say, be aware of him. And they've got my picture on the email. And I didn't, and actually there's 2 other emails about me. And I kind of got a kick out of that all of these, we don't know who sent the email, but the email was sent to probably 8 or 9 people. It was all Epstein's Inner Circle. So Epstein's Inner Circle was edified about me, and they had my picture while I was down in Florida investigating.
So you got a copy of it. Did you actually see the black book, or did somebody photocopy it? How did it end up in that form? Because the FBI eventually had possession of it, right?
Yes, I got a photocopy of it.
You got a photocopy of it? Yeah. Okay. And that's what was released with Gawker?
Yes.
Very good.
It's also funny because Gawker outed Peter Thiel as gay, and I kind of look
I mean, did he really need to out him? You know, it wasn't like it was a secret.
Well, Peter Thiel took it rather offensively, and actually he put a contract out on Gawker. Anybody that was willing to sue them, he would finance. And we've got emails between Thiel and Epstein, who look to be pretty good buddies in this latest document dump. And Epstein says to Thiel, Epstein probably didn't like the fact that we published his address book on the internet. And Epstein says to Thiel, I'll share the expenses of the lawsuit against Gawker. So I wonder if Epstein actually kicked in money on putting Gawker out of business.
I'm sure.
Wow.
I'm sure. I remember Gawker. Gawker was my jam. I was a Gawker Jezebel. Loved those sites. I remember all of that.
Well, the thing about Gawker was they did a lot of things that were kind of mean. They were kind of the mean kids in the media. But they'd also publish guys like me, because no one was going to touch the black book.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to everybody. But what's funny about that is as soon as the black book got published, the floodgates opened on it. And tons of ink has been dumped on the black book since then. I mean, only 2 publications have given me any credit for it, but it became quite the cultural phenomenon.
And the editor you worked with at Gawker was who again?
John Cook.
Right. So when I found the next black book, which was an earlier version of it, when I reached out to Nick was like, and I had already reached out to major publications. I reached out to New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. Nobody was going to touch it. Nobody. Everybody said, first of all, we doubt the authenticity of it. Second of all, even if it's authentic, we're not interested in the story. So I reached out to Nick and I was like, who do you think, I could go to? And he's like, well, you reach out to John Cook. I can connect you with the editor who helped me at Gawker, who was then at Business Insider. So I started a correspondence with John Cook, and eventually he sent out a whole team, forensic analysis, journalists, you name it. And we ended up authenticating the second book, which was an earlier version of the book that Nick had gotten a copy of, which was amazing because it showed us his network in the 90s. Your book was from the early 2000s. And so we were able to kind of understand his network a decade before, which was, I think, really revelatory here as to what was happening, happening in his network.
Well, it definitely mushroomed. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And where do you think it goes? So let me ask you. So you and I have been able to unpack, I don't know, near almost 1,000 names But where does it go? How big is it go? How big is the net? How big is the network?
I think that Jeffrey Epstein was one of the more powerful people in the world. If you look at everything that he was able to do and look at his connections, his vast connections, Dropsite News has put out some really good articles about the weapons deals that he and Ehud Barak took part in. And he was also a world-class money launderer as well as a pedophilic pimp. I mean, the guy was evil, but he was talented. I don't know if you're familiar with American lexicon in football, but if you're team evil, he would be like a first-round draft choice.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He might even be the first overall pick, I think, because he was so multi-talented at nefarious enterprises.
For sure. And do you think, in your estimation, from what you understand, do you think that Epstein ultimately was an intelligence asset?
Oh, absolutely.
And who do you think was behind this?
People hit me up with Jeffrey Epstein was Mossad or Israeli intelligence, and I don't dispute that. But I also believe that the CIA, or the dark malignant corner of the CIA, is not going to let the dark malignant corner of the Mossad compromise American politicians on American soil without getting a cut of that intelligence. The Mossad and the CIA work together. It's like the Gambino and the Genovese crime family. They've got mutual interests, and they work together, and they work out their difficulties.
I think so too. And do you think that also connects with MI6? Do you think there's also across the pond with Prince Andrew, also Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell? Do you think that the United Kingdom had some part in it?
Most likely. I've talked to intelligence people, and they've told me that the three countries that are most fond of blackmailing people are Israel, the UK, and the United States. And I think Russia is in fourth place. So I believe that, yeah, it's possible. Robert Maxwell was certainly hooked up to many different countries. And in the latest tranche of emails, Epstein talks about that. He talks about Maxwell blackmailing the Mossad and the Mossad killing him. And that's what Eri Ben-Menashe, who is a former Israeli spy, that's the story that he gave me, was Maxwell plundered all those pensions from his publishing empire. And then he wanted the Israelis to replenish the money, and he tried to blackmail them. And blackmailing intelligence agencies doesn't really go that well.
For sure. For sure. Now, one of the questions that I am constantly asked, and it sort of, it raises, questions in my mind. Why, of all things, pedophilia? Why is this the go-to thing? Is it what is the fascination for these people around sexual abuse and torture and just absolute cruelty and barbarism towards children? Is it something ritualistic? Is it satanic? Is it part of some, kind of hazing ritual? What do you think? What's the drive? And what did you see in the Franklin scandal? And what do you see now with the Epstein network?
With the Franklin scandal, there was an occult component to it. And I've been looking for that with the Epstein case, and I haven't seen that component, but the sheer sadism of the pedophiles in the Franklin network and also in the Epstein network. Some of them liked molesting little girls, but others liked beating on little girls. And I saw that in the Franklin scandal too, where there is a cross section of very sadistic pedophiles. And I initially thought that Epstein might be the kinder, gentler pedophile network, but then I talked to some victims, and that kind of changed my mind about that. And then I've been in the anti-trafficking field for a long time, 22, 23 years. I've spoken at a number of conferences, and I was told that by therapists, very good therapists, that Epstein was trafficking kids that were under the age of 10.
Oh my God.
And that was the same thing with the Franklin network. The thing about traffickers, and people don't really get this because the media has been completely abrogated its responsibilities about reporting, is traffickers, child traffickers are vicious, psychopathic people. And they have no conscience. With the Franklin pimps and also with Epstein and Maxwell liked younger pubescent, and so did the Franklin pimps. But if you wanted a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, they would arrange for it. It wasn't like it was going to transgress upon their conscience. And I've seen that where guys they go younger and younger and younger and more violent and more violent and more violent to get to. It's about getting a dopamine blast or an endorphin blast. It's an addiction. It becomes an addiction with them.
And with this whole network, with this whole sequence of trafficking, torturing, abusing, raping, and so on and so forth, part of the Epstein network has been said to be a blackmail operation, operation to entrap very prominent people into having them do certain things for other powerful people. For example, we know that in every government there are different factions. So basically, one faction brings you in, and other factions can help to benefit from putting you in compromising situations. Do you think that that's what also was at play here?
Oh, absolutely. With the Franklin scandal, I got very deep into that network, and I ultimately got a blackmail photographer to talk to me. He was a little on the unctuous side and a little on the sociopathic side, but a lot of his information really turned out to be true, although I had to corroborate it. But when I first met him, I was trying to get my mind around it all, because there isn't really any books about it. Well, now there's the Franklin scandal, but there isn't. We're not taught about this in school. The media doesn't cover stuff like this. So I asked him, how does it work? And he said, once you're compromised, it's like you're on a yacht, and it's a beautiful yacht, and it's a beautiful day, and you can have anything you want on that yacht. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. So there is zero incentive. Once you are compromised, there is zero incentive to come forward or even buck the orders. And what's interesting is people that are compromised generally vote with their constituency, but occasionally markers are called in, and they vote the way that they are told to vote. And I've noticed that trend throughout the 2 decades that I've been looking into this.
The yacht analogy is interesting that you bring up, because Robert Maxwell, of course,
Yes.
drowned off of a yacht.
He got off the yacht.
He went off the yacht.
Yeah.
He went off the yacht and he didn't come back up, I'm sometimes, I'm a father, so I'm sometimes, it's beyond my comprehension of how people can do this. And it's just purely, like you're saying, this sociopathic, this kind of absolute disconnect from any moral, ethical groundings, any sense of empathy, nothing. They have they are just pure evil in that sense, incarnate. They can do these things without any remorse, without any conscience. And I wonder, people have asked me, especially here where I am in Russia, people have asked me, well, why aren't people being prosecuted? Why isn't the justice system working? And I come back and said, the justice system is part of the problem as well. The justice system is an arm of the state. And this is the Epstein regime. What do you make of that? Like, how do you've spoken to victims. I've spoken to victims. We've had an opportunity to do this kind of work in this field, you much longer than I. But why is there no justice? How would you respond to people who are asking that question?
Well, it shows how perfidious and corrupt the government has become. And it's a sewer. And when you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. So our government has known about Epstein. Well, it was initially enlightened about Epstein in 1996 when Maria Farmer went to the FBI, but definitely knew about Epstein in 2005, 2006, 2007. And when you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. So our government, the United States government, is aiding and abetting child trafficking. And child trafficking is such a horrific crime. And I think a lot of Americans, and that's what I ran into, just a wall of cognitive dissonance when I was pitching the Franklin scandal and also with the Epstein scandal. But I think the wall of cognitive dissonance is eroding. And with these emails, people are seeing just how dark it can be.
For sure. How does, for people who are wondering, because I myself, I wonder because, so I have kids and we've crossed the border, we've traveled internationally, and there is like a regime to control where the kids go. For example, like, do you have documents? Are both parents present? Did you sign this? Did you sign that? Did you get that notarized? How are kids trafficked? Maybe how were they trafficked before in the Franklin scandal? And how are they trafficked now? And like, what are the main nodes of this kind of trafficking that you've seen?
Well, in the Franklin scandal, there was an orphanage called Boys Town that was plundered.
Yep.
And they also got kids out of foster care. And a lot of times kids just fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
If you're a predator, you know how to prey. And Maxwell built a huge machine that there were a lot of co-conspirators there that were constantly looking for, that were just vacuuming up young girls. And I think that there are, and I know that they were getting kids, Epstein and Burnell were getting kids from Eastern Europe, and they weren't renting kids in Eastern, they were buying kids in Eastern Europe. And that's how dark that reality is, that these super predators can go and buy children. I'm sure that you could buy children in the United States, actually.
Can I do a little bit of a tinfoil hat moment? You mentioned Eastern Europe, and I keep on pinging on this Eastern Europe thing. They were buying children. We know Epstein had a thing for Slavic women. A couple of his most main squeezes were his people were Slavic women, Slovakian as well. We also know that how deep does this go and who is involved? I mean, Andrew Tate is in Eastern Europe trafficking women. Erica Kirk is now part of a scandal that was in Romania trafficking children. Are these all connected?
I think at any one given time, there are various protected networks that are trafficking children. And occasionally they come together, and a lot of times they don't.
Okay.
But they share mutual interests. And
it's just, because these situations to lay people like us are so unique. You'd think they have to be connected, but talking to you, I'm realizing like this is actually quite common, and they're not all connected.
Well, people ask me, is Epstein what happened after Franklin? And Franklin was Republicans trafficking little boys to Republicans to get molested. And Epstein is primarily Democrats molesting little girls. So
interesting.
They're very, that's the partisan breakdown in the United States of
very
America.
Interesting.
But yeah, because I've written a lot in this area and I've spoken at conferences, I'm a lightning rod for it. And people contact me all the time and say I was in this network or that network. And unfortunately, I'm just one guy up against the machine. And I would really love to investigate everybody's story, but I can't. I would have to clone myself like Jeffrey Epstein.
True. Very true. Although we could use more of you, to be honest. We could. You could.
Well, yeah. I also want to ask you something about Les Wexner. I find him to be incredibly intriguing. Recently, I had a discussion in a space. It's also come back and kind of gone viral. This thing about him being possessed by some demon. Do you see this? Is this a common thread? Is this just deflection? What is this? Like, what are we doing here with this whole sort of, we are kind of possessed by these dark forces?
Well, Les Wexner would know a lot about that, I would think.
But he says he has a demon that kind of like hangs out with him. And I'm like, well, what kind of supernatural stuff elements are in this, right? Because we talk about it clinically, and we're talking about the logistics of actually doing it and what's actually happening. But there's a really weird spiritual element to this that I'm just not educated enough to understand. Can you shed any light on that?
I concluded very early on that this was spiritual warfare, that I was engaged in spiritual warfare, because whether you want to believe in a cosmic evil or just an earthly evil, it's there. You're going up against the destruction of children is the most evil thing I think people can do. And you're going up against people that have no compunction about destroying children. And Les Wexner, I would say that he was one of the grand wizards. He went before, actually Congress went to him a couple of days ago. And he was subpoenaed, but he wouldn't go to Congress, so Congress went to him. And he told so many lies, I couldn't even, because I know Les Wexner pretty well at this point. And his entire testimony was just littered with lies. And we have to make him pay for that. He knew exactly what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. They were lovers. And they were also perpetrators together. And Jeffrey Epstein got power of attorney over Les Wexner's vast fortune in 1991. And that enabled him to really jump up in the world, although he had been in business with Adnan Khashoggi and John Lees, who were arms dealers. Epstein was also a big-time arms dealer. He was actually very good at war profiteering. But I think Wexner gave him a boost. Wexner's very, very dirty. And I think that, I don't know what kind of deal they worked out, but I have a tendency to believe it's about money laundering. Because if you've got a couple $1 billion, it's very easy to launder money. And I think that Epstein might have been involved with that. Wexner has connections definitely to the mafia, for sure. And also to, he and Epstein had connections to the CIA too. Actually, they moved, there was a CIA proprietary airline called Southern Air Transport.
Yeah.
That was part of Iran-Contra, yep. And then it was part of Blood Diamonds. Well, actually, Epstein.
I heard he used that. Yeah, he used it.
And Wexner moved it to Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Les Wexner was featured very prominently in the book that I found, and also featured in your book, I believe, as well, his contacts. But one of the things that through the investigations over the years that we've uncovered is that he was the main driving force financially for Epstein, as you rightfully point out. Like, Epstein, okay, was a businessman, but he did not get the hundreds of millions just by himself. Les Wexner was the one who put up a lot of money to Epstein to do a lot of this work for money laundering, for a lot of their other, profiteering that they were doing on the sides. Who knows what else that they were doing, using that money for, and what that money was going to. But certainly he is actually, I think, a fundamental pillar of the Epstein network.
Oh, absolutely. Leon Black gave
another one.
I mean, the media has been so disingenuous about Epstein. Vanity Fair, which is, I guess, a relatively sophisticated magazine, said the reason why Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney, and I'm not making this up. You can go look at the article. Vanity Fair said the reason why Les Wexner gave Jeffrey Epstein power of attorney over his vast empire was because he was lonely.
I love it.
And then Leon Black gave Jeffrey Epstein $160 million because Epstein was helping him with his taxes. Now, Leon Black has a battalion of accountants. He's a billionaire. I mean, he probably pays less in taxes than I do. So it's just kind of silly what how the mainstream media has abrogated its responsibilities.
I also want to ask you both about the other demon known as Howard Lutnick. Every day, this gets darker and darker with him. I'm at the point now, and I mean, I'll just, should we all ready? Should we put the hat on? So I'll be honest. I think that he has been involved in the expropriation of wealth, livelihood, and everything from America to Israel or those sort of Jewish Zionist interests for over almost 50 years. What is going on with him? He living his miraculous story of 9/11, his sister's miraculous story of 9/11, living next door to Epstein, then lying about it. Now it's all coming out into the truth. He's like basically looks like Trump's handler. He's laughing as we're talking about Epstein files. He's laughing as we're talking about 9/11. What can you tell us about Howard Lutnick? And he just seems so evil.
Howard Lutnick is a very lucky guy. But what I find kind of fascinating with Lutnick is, like, he was the first one to come out and say that Epstein was a blackmailer.
Right. He said the best.
And he was vermin, but then now we've got these emails where Howard Lutnick's going to Epstein's island. That was very strange that he would do something like that, say something like that, because it was antithetical to what the Trump administration is trying to propagate.
Absolutely. And how do you think he factors into the network? What's his angle?
Yeah, I feel like, he comes out, and for me as a geopolitical analyst, he sort of comes out of nowhere. I'm not from the finance side. I don't do economics. So he's from that sort of Wall Street crashes and all of that stuff. He sort of steps right into the forefront. And as things go on, it seems like he's involved with so much of the horrible thing. Now we're finding out he's going to profit off of the tariffs in this way that most people can't imagine.
Big way.
So I just feel like Howard Lutnick is actually Trump's demon or something. I'm not sure, but this guy, there's something really dark about this man.
Indeed. I think that there's a number of people around Trump that are very, very dark. It's hard to know. What you can see that some are just completely obsequious, like Bondi and Patel. But it's really hard to know who Trump is actually listening to, because he comes across as completely autonomous, even though he can't be. He's stepped in too much mud to be completely autonomous. That's my take on it anyway. But I will say he did release these 3 million documents. They did not adhere to the letter of the law, but they gave people a much better understanding of how evil this world is. And I think when I saw those documents coming out and I started reading them, I mean, a lot of them have been disinformation, or some of them I've bitten on some and looked into it, and I realized that it's disinformation, but some of it is very accurate too. And
you touched on this sort of, it's showing people just like the amount of evil or how dark the world actually can be. One of our viewers said, and this is something I've also been thinking, they're acting like they don't care that we know anymore. There's some people that are reacting embarrassed or resigning and kind of going into hiding. But for the most part in America, it seems like they don't really care that we know. What are your thoughts on that?
There's two trends that are kind of paralyzing Americans, I think. The first one is the polarization of the left and right.
Mhm.
The left thinks the right is mentally ill. The right thinks the left is mentally ill. When I was growing up as a kid in Minneapolis, my best friend who lived next door, my family were Democrats, his family were Republicans. Wasn't an issue. Didn't even talk about it. It was nothing. Now, if a kid's living next door, if he's a Democrat living next door to a Republican, I mean, I don't even know if his parents would allow him to play with the kid. So you've got that going on. And then Americans have been conditioned to believe that they cannot affect change. When you superimpose those two trends, you end up with a certain paralysis. And then Americans have their opiates too, like the NFL, I think, is a major opiate. Although I like football and I play college football, but it's a major opiate. Sports are an opiate. The garbage that comes out of television is an opiate. And that anesthetizes people. And also Americans, they're in debt. I mean, they're on a treadmill. So there's a lot that goes into the psychological dynamics of Americans feeling they can't affect change. I think that was the real seductive thing about Trump is people thought that Trump was a real maverick and that he was going to, quote unquote, drain the swamp, even though I don't really see him doing that at this point. But with Americans, we've lost our way. And I think it's really important to empower people. And we started an organization called Epstein Justice. And myself and some other activists, and actually we're growing. We're a totally grassroots movement. And needless to say, billionaires aren't funding us. But what we want is an independent congressional commission, and they're very different than like subcommittees. Independent congressional commissions do not require a presidential signature. They need a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate, and they often employ non-government personnel. And that's the only way we're going to have a shot at truth with this is non-government personnel. And what we want, this independent congressional commission, we have two objectives. We want to know why the government covered up child trafficking, and we want the perpetrators to be prosecuted. Simple moral baseline. And that's what we're shooting for. And I see us growing and growing because people are getting disillusioned. I mean, we still have that right-left thing. Epstein Justice, we're not aligned with the right. We're not aligned with the left. We're not aligned with any religion. So we're as inclusive as we possibly can be. And with this, what's interesting about anti-trafficking movement is you've got a lot of people are on the right, really religious on the right, and a lot of the people, and then there's a lot of people really with feminist orientations that are part of it. So this anti-trafficking is a movement that brings together the right and the left.
For sure.
I think that it is the only thing at this point that can bring the right and left together.
I want to ask you, I'm old enough to remember, I know you do for sure. You remember the case of Jean-Benet Ramsey and a lot of the, yes. And people have been coming back, especially these months, people have been coming back and saying, what happened to her? And there were a lot of cases of young kids disappearing, found murdered, especially in child pageants. Remember this kind of thing in the 90s, late 80s into the 90s. Does this have also something to do? Does this have the hallmarks of part of a network of some sort?
There was a huge network out of Detroit, and it was run by a guy named Francis Sheldon. And he had actually an island in Lake Michigan, and he would fly kids in and he would make child abuse material, and his buddies would molest all the kids. And actually, I believe it was Jean-Benet's grandfather who helped build that island, who put the airstrip in that island. There's a connection there. But with that network, there's a woman named Marnie Keenan. She's a journalist out of Detroit. She wrote a book called The Snow Murders, because with that network, as we talked about earlier, some of those guys just started killing kids and then just leaving their bodies on the side of the road. And there was a task force that was formed to go after them, and that task force did not make a single arrest. And the guy that ran it, his name was Francis Sheldon, from a very affluent family. He just moved to Amsterdam, and the last I heard about him, he owned an orphanage in India.
That doesn't bode very well.
No, it doesn't at all. So that was a huge, huge network. The Franklin network was huge, but if you look at like a flow chart of that network, it was even bigger. And they were using a lot of nonprofit organizations and even churches to funnel money to.
That's another thing I wanted to ask. I'm from Boston area originally, right? I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts. And of course, you remember the Boston Globe reporting the major scandal in the Catholic Church, and it was across the Atlantic. It was all over the world. Is part of what we've seen also in the Catholic Church a part of a much larger, for example, organized network of abuse?
Chill.
It's true.
I believe that, I mean, with the Franklin scandal, those guys were definitely getting kids from a Catholic orphanage for sure.
Really?
I'm not seeing that with Epstein. I don't really see any kind of religious affiliations with Epstein. And
he didn't like the Catholic Church, as far as it goes in the files.
Well, actually, him and Maxwell had their picture taken with the Pope, which is kind of strange. But and also with the network that I was talking about that was run out of Detroit and Fox Island.
Fox Island, Jesus.
There wasn't a lot of, I don't really see a nexus with the Catholic Church, but Catholic priests have been molesting kids all over the country. And the Catholic Church and its infinite wisdom, like with Boys Town, there was a priest in upstate New York who molested a bunch of kids. And then the Catholic Church in its infinite wisdom moved him to Boys Town. And he became the number 2 guy at Boys Town, and he molested a lot of kids there. And then they moved him to, he became the pastor in a jail in Las Vegas. And that's, so that guy molested scores of kids. And he shouldn't have been a pastor in a jail or a prison. I mean, he should have gotten life there. But I think that we're getting, because of the work of the Boston Globe, I mean, certainly the Catholic Church, there's a number of things that have come up. We've seen what's happened with the Catholic Church. We've seen what's happened with the Boy Scouts. And I think another variable there is Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. People didn't want to believe that someone that's in such a prestigious place of power would put it on the line.
Yeah.
But these guys are more than willing to do that. And plus, I think Clinton's probably been compromised for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the Monica Lewinsky thing was very much about more human trafficking, aka Kosovo. So it's all tied into the same sort of sick, weapons and human trafficking. It's all the same system. It's crazy.
Well,
actually, on that point, what's the connection between war and trafficking?
Yeah.
In your mind.
Well, one of the biggest military contractors in the world is DynCorp. And they were trafficking kids all throughout the Baltics during that war. And actually, they were busted trafficking kids. And Myra Servina made a movie about it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't even a speed bump for them. I don't even know if I don't know if they even got fined. I'm sure they got fined, but But you would think that that would be problematic to resurrect the reputation of a corporation after they've been busted child trafficking, but not DynCorp. It wasn't a problem for them.
That's so it really melts my mind that this stuff can go on and there can be no accountability for it structurally. But then, of course, I tell people the structures themselves are part of the problem. That's the bigger issue here.
Yeah, we're going to vote our way out of it.
Yeah. How? When the people you're voting for are part of it.
You got to vote hard. Got to vote harder. You got to vote with more heart.
I cannot vote for a Republican or a Democrat.
It's insane.
No way.
No way.
I just couldn't do it.
Can't do it.
No
Can't
way.
do it. I can't root for anything that this state is currently doing. Nothing. Not the Maduro, not ICE, not any of it. But I want to ask you, because we're talking about these systems, and maybe both of you, since you're kind of in the thick of it, we can't vote our way out of it. We don't want to be violent. What do we do? We're dealing with this ring that has, I was doing spaces and streams on that. I've kind of taken a step back on the Epstein files, but I was saying, guys, no matter what you're interested in, it has touched what you're interested in, these Epstein files. How do we ever even begin to undertake this huge task of trying to exorcise this? We're castrating the swamp. We need a full-on exorcism.
Yeah.
I think Epstein has given us a window. Now, I might be delusional about this, but I should say I've never been diagnosed as delusional. But I think that Epstein has given us a window that we can take advantage of. And a lot of people, when you've got a pathology, there's three phases. There's awareness, there's acceptance, there's action. Most Americans were aware of Epstein, but they had a hard time accepting the malevolence. And I think a lot more are accepting the malevolence at this point. And then after you have a critical mass of acceptance, then you can get rid of it. And I think I hope that's where we're at now, because this is going to be the best chance we're going to have in our lifetimes to fix this. And it might even be the best chance that we ever have before our leaders take us off a cliff.
Yeah.
So I think that we really have to seize the day. And I think that that's why Epstein Justice is so important, is because it's growing and it's something that needs to be nurtured. And when I first started it 2 or 3 years ago, people were thinking like they just wanted nothing to do with it. But now it's kind of like the Franklin scandal. You know, I mean, it's just things catch up. And I think that with the release of these documents, and Trump is a hugely flawed president, and bombing Nigeria and Venezuela and ice shooting Minnesotans in the back of the head. I'm from Minneapolis, so that one really hit me pretty hard. But Bush won, and I think that this is the dynamics of it. Bush one built Pandora's box. He was the one that covered it up. Obama had the acumen not to touch it. Biden had the acumen not to touch it. And Trump didn't touch it during his first term. But then he said that there would be some Epstein transparency, that he was compatible with that. And he cracked open Pandora's box ever so slightly. And I think that he thought he could just slam it shut. But the thing about Pandora's box is, regardless of how much you open it, the curse comes out. So the curse is out. And it's like toothpaste. It's not going back into the tube.
Yep.
I love that analogy. I think you're right. He sort of flirted with it. And I thought even talked about this in spaces. He sort of flirted with it to pander to that sort of Tea Party, MAGA party that was growing. And now we're finding out that Epstein actually had a hand in that. So it's all kind of connected at the same time. And I think that's a really great analogy, that he sort of tried to like peek open the box and use it to his advantage. And it's almost cosmic. He wasn't powerful enough to close it back up again.
Well, I can remember the first release of documents, and you had the influencers with their little white binders coming out of the White House.
Oh my God. That's when it began for me. I was like, this is a sham. This is crazy.
like they had the secrets of the universe. And then when I saw the documents, okay, with the Gawker, I insisted that we redact the numbers of the adults. And where the victims were, I insisted that we redact their last names and also their numbers. And I thought that was the right way to go. I thought that was the ethical way to go. But when I saw Pam Bondi's rendition of my black book, everything was blacked out. and the flight logs too. So, I mean, I released more incriminating information in 2015 than she did in 2025. As soon as I saw that all those names in the black book were blacked out, I just knew that it was going to be a sham.
Of course. And they were already public. You'd already made them public. It was a secret.
They'd been floating around the internet for 10 years.
Exactly. Exactly. Which is so crazy for me to think about. But such is the state of things. But I think you're right. I think that now is the moment. I think everybody is feeling the zeitgeist. I think people are saying we need an anti-Epstein coalition. We need a party. We need a political movement that is against. First of all, it's a synthesis of left and right. It's a coalition, but it's against these elites who continue to do things with impunity, like traffic children, abuse children, even kill children, right? And people all over the world, old, young, you name it. So I think you really have hit something. We've been so thankful for your time. I want you to tell our listeners and our viewers, where can they follow your work? How can they get involved with Epstein Justice? What's the future hold for this movement?
I would rather, I've written books, but I would rather your audience go to EPSTEIN'Justice.com. And we've got a change.org petition that's got like 80,000 signatures. You can sign that. And then you can sign up for to receive we have webinars. We're going to have a webinar next Tuesday night at 8 Eastern Standard Time. And also we're forming Facebook groups by state. So we get a critical mass of people that can start putting heat on their respective federal legislators. And also we send out, if you sign up, we send out a legislator of the week every week. And we have people call them. So this is our plan, and we've been doing it on a shoestring, and it's kind of it's difficult. I mean, someone asked me, "Why do you need money?" And I replied, I didn't say that when I gave the accountant a check last week. Why do you need money? So it's, people, I don't know. We're supposed to be like Gandhi or something. I don't mind it, but I do live in New York, and we're having a blizzard right now, so that really wouldn't work for me. But yes, I think Epstein Justice is the way to go, and I would just strongly urge your audience to go to Epstein Justice and actually check out our webinar next Tuesday night.
Where is that? Is that on the website, Epstein Justice as well? Perfect.
Yes.
We will be definitely plugging that. I know a lot of people that really want to get involved that have been kind of doing their own thing and are trying to kind of coalesce because they're like, I have this information, and we don't want people overlapping too much. We would be wasting time and manpower. So this is really amazing.
It is. And Nick, I look forward to hopefully speaking with you again soon. I'm going to do some more long form pieces of some of the work I've been doing, but I look forward to our collaboration into the future. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done still.
Absolutely. And we need people. We need to come together. There's 310 million Americans that are adults, I believe. Now, how many of these people are there? I mean, that have our government compromised. I mean, is there 5,000? Is there 10,000? We have the numbers, and we can do it. And as I said earlier, I think that this is going to be our best shot before our leaders take us. The wealth polarization right now is just crazy, and it's going to continue that way. It's not going to slow down. And you're going to have the very rich and the very poor. And people are, I mean, at this point, kids graduating from college can't even buy a house in America. It's pretty egregious.
You're absolutely right. Well, we thank you for your hard work and your effort all these years. You inspired me to help, advance the second Epstein book and to continue the investigation. I think all of our combined efforts over the years have really helped to bring about this moment. And I look forward to the years to come and all of our continued work and effort together.
Thank you so much. It was a
Take
fantastic.
care.
Thank you so much. You too. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
We need to have him on again. That was good.
Absolutely.
A lot of people were really excited to have him. People really liked the conversation. That was really amazing. That was really good.
That was fantastic. Now, of course, he mentioned money, and of course, our show is funded, from us. But thankfully, we have a few nice sponsors. So we have a sponsor ad coming up right now, and then we'll come back to you all with the super chats and our closing statements, and we will end the show. So
go back to bed. Here's the ad. You get to see Chris again.
Woo! It's a real pleasure for me to introduce a great opportunity today and something that I want to really speak to you all about. Now, I, as a kid, was a big fan of nuclear energy. Was something that I always admired. It was something that, for me, was very much about the future. So I want to speak to you about something that's happening today in the United States. On January 5th, 2026, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. Now, that's huge. For me, that speaks about independence, sovereignty, and it speaks about the possibilities for the future. And this isn't just government spending. It's not the pork, the fat, all the things that we speak about in terms of domestic U.S. politics. It's a declaration of intent. America needs uranium, domestic uranium, and it needs it now. Here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium annually, but produces less than 1 million pounds domestically. Now, that's a huge gap, and this means we're dependent on foreign supplies for 98% of our uranium. That's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generations, and advanced defense systems. And of course, it's a critical gap for those who speak about America first. With Russia controlling significant global enrichment capacity and Greenland now banning uranium mining, the White House has made it crystal clear America must develop its own supply chain. And that includes, of course, the supply chain for uranium. This is where Atomic Minerals comes in, trading on the TSX Venture under ATOM, ATOM, and OTC under ATMMF. This company isn't new to the game. It's a team with a history of delivering major uranium exits. The leadership includes members who were part of the discovery and subsequent $654 million sale of the Rough Rider deposit to Rio Tinto. The question is, can they do it again? Atomic controls 4 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Colorado Plateau, America's historic uranium province, which has produced over 597 million pounds of uranium. Trading at an 87% discount to the peer group average, the company presents potential upside as the market begins to recognize its strategic assets and proven management team. Now, Atomic's first flagship project is South Lisbon Valley East, located in the mining-friendly state of Utah. Many of you know Utah, of course, from the old Westerns, but you should also know Utah as a very important geological natural resource. It has tremendous minerals, it has tremendous unexplored and vast potential in terms of those natural resources. This project in particular sits in the Lisbon Valley District, one of the most productive uranium belts in the entire United States. The district alone has produced 80 million pounds of uranium. That's documented history and proof that the geology works. Now, on January 14th, the U.S. administration showed their support again. The White House invoked Section 232 via an executive order, a formal declaration of U.S. resource independence. This goes beyond support. It's a mandate. Energy security is now synonymous with national security, and the US government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory arsenal to secure the nuclear fuel cycle within North America. Now, Atomic Minerals, trading as ATMMF in the US and Atom in Canada, is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Supported by renewed government focus on domestic uranium, the exploration sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years. With its flagship drill program approved, Atomic Minerals has exploration underway and is advancing with a focus on execution and delivering results. I'll leave you with this. Members of the leadership team were behind the discovery and $654 million sale to Rio Tinto, an exit about 59 times larger than Atomic Minerals' current valuation. You do the math. If you want to learn more about this critical mineral story, about the importance of uranium, and the team that already delivered big results, check out the link in the description. A special thanks to Atomic Minerals for making today's video possible.
Only you would make an ad that's like actually educational and like not
come on.
not terrible. Like, you know, like it was actually not bad to watch. I was like, usually we get to the ads and streams and I'm like, what is this trash slop? And then, no, that was good. That was
Thank you so
good.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Uranium.
Uranium. Anyway, I don't even know. My head's kind of spinning from today's episode. That was a lot.
That was a lot. By the way, we should have a book club, reading club for the Franklin scandal.
We can do that.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
With Nick's book? We can do that. I'm almost done with From Yahweh to Zion, and we're halfway through. So I could get into that right after. I'll order a copy today. And guys, we'll put links to all of Nick's stuff in the descriptions. We'll grab his book link and all of that stuff as well. You're very sneezy today. God bless you.
Thank you. It says the truth, by the way. When you sneeze, it means it's correct, or it's like, you know.
Oh, I like that.
There you go.
Guys, keep an eye on this Mexico thing. We'll be keeping the coverage up with that. Russia is making moves. We're going to get very deep into Russia in the very near future. We have surprises and very big surprises in store that we cannot talk about, but you will be incredibly pleasantly surprised. I also want to thank you all for joining us for our comeback. We took a little bit of a hiatus for Chris to travel and for me to stop crashing out. So I think it worked. We'll see. We'll see.
It worked. We're good.
We are good. We're good. We're surviving. But what are your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about, firstly, Mexico? We're seeing, we know about the transit avenues from Ukraine, from Israel. A lot of these weapons that were supposed to be going to Ukraine wound up in the hands of Mexican cartels. Or do you have any thoughts on that? And then after that, I want your thoughts on Iran before we close.
Oh my God, I have so many thoughts. By the way, I've been part of a very, very big investigative series about soldiers in Ukrainian International Legion that are coming from Mexico and Colombia, from the cartels, that are learning in Ukraine FPV drones, Baba Yaga drones, advanced drone technology, advanced weapon systems, electronic warfare, not to mention the standard infantry, artillery tactics that are on the battlefield. So that's to say that thousands, documented, thousands of Colombians, Mexicans, and other Latin Americans who are related to cartels have gone to Ukraine to learn the tactics, only to return back to the cartels to use those same tactics for their own nefarious purposes, which, by the way, since they were fighting in Ukraine, which is NATO-backed, maybe the cartels are also a NATO-backed force in the Americas. Makes you wonder, right? Especially when you have Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, a Mexican president who's very much charting a multipolar path. Interesting. Dee-dee-dee-dee. I won't do the other song for fears of, getting canceled, but you know where I would be, and the chair up in the air. But in any case,
Haba, nagila, haba, nagila, haba, nagila, epsmicha.
in any case, I would say that the big thing for us to understand is that imagine all these cartels having FPV drone trained pilots.
Don't forget, some of these cartel members trained with the IDF because they're from the United States. Okay.
So it just at the end of the day, my thoughts are that a lot of this is basically a fifth column to overthrow the Mexican government, to install another pro-American government in Mexico, to continue to deepen the crisis within Mexico, to destabilize Mexico, to have Mexico come back within the orbit of the US and not to be a multipolar country or, you know, a leader in the global South, and to make sure that Mexicans understand their place as vassals of the United States and not as an independent power that's going to find a, you know, equal footing with China and Russia and other, you know, countries in the region. But make sure to keep making the breakfast burritos and the tacos and the enchiladas, and everybody just, you know, keep making parts and automobiles and other low-cost, value-added production in Mexico. That's my thought on this.
I love that.
Remember, there's a book about drug cartels don't exist. They really don't exist. They're just an extension of the U.S., you know, machine.
Guys, go read I'm going to do it again. Seth Harp, I'm once again asking you to please check your DMs or emails. Please come on our show. Regardless, guys, read the Fort Bragg cartel. That gives you a lot of insight in what these networks are doing in places like the Middle East, Syria, Libya, and Latin America, obviously. So now let's go to the other nexus of where these Zionists are going to make us go to war.
Yes.
What's going on? What do you think is going on in Iran? Do you have any updates? We've seen a ton of Russian aircraft in and out again. The buildup is continuing with the West. I did want to say that the other day, I'm not going to put the hat back on, but bear with me, guys. The other day, Trump did mention Iran has 10 days to make a decision to take the deal. I still don't understand the deal. I don't think Trump knows the deal. But 10 days from that day is Purim. Can you give us your thoughts on Iran? And then tell us a little bit about what Purim is and what it's celebrating and why an attack on Iran or something disastrous happening to or in Iran on Purim is a very big possibility.
To take the first part first, I think Purim is the holiday where they all dress up and kind of go, you know.
So they're like their Mardi Gras?
Yeah, it's like their Mardi Gras. And they do kind of very bizarre rituals. And also, I think it's also the one where they sacrifice the chickens, right? Is that the one?
No, that's in the fall. That's Yom Kippur, I think.
Ah, okay. Well, okay. But this is the one where they get dressed up and like.
This is the one where they celebrate the historical genocide of Persians.
Yes, exactly. And they get dressed up and they kind of like make fun of vanquished, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, you know, I don't know any other holidays that kind of revel in the defeat of somebody to this extent that becomes carnivalesque. I mean, I can understand, for example, you know, May 9th, you know, soldiers in step and, you know, great patriotic war and the sacred war, but it's never like.
Yeah. It's not like that.
Like reveling in the murder of Germans. In fact, the Russian government is very clear about the fact that it was never was even supportive of the mass slaughter of German civilians, which the US and the UK did in Dresden and things like that. It's very interesting, some of this that goes on. But in any case, the fact that we are headed towards Purim with the idea that Trump is the new Cyrus type figure, that Iran now represents, you know, even worse than Amalek, you know, they are like, you know, everything that is evil in this world, and that Israel is pushing, you know, the Zionist regime is pushing for big time regime change. We've seen in the past 24 hours, all the Kurdish groups came together. All the Baluchi groups came together. Exactly what I've been saying all along. I've told you my fears for the past months that Iran is going down the path of Balkanization. And everybody was like, oh, conspiracy theorists. Oh, what a wacko. Oh, you don't understand history. Well, once again, you can go to my timeline. You can see I posted the picture almost every month of the picture of Yugoslavia and Iran next to each other, basically saying, hey, we know the plan. It's not rocket science what they're going to do. They're going to carve this country up, because it's much better to be controlled, divided than unified. I think that we are very close to a war. However, I want to say this war will have tremendous costs. Trump will be responsible for the most American deaths since Vietnam. 100%. Guaranteed. Because just take, for example, and you were a Navy gal, just take, for example, Iran's capabilities in the Persian Gulf. Iran has the capability at this point to sink not only the 2 aircraft carriers. Can you imagine not 1, but 2 aircraft carriers being sunk by Iran? Now, people will say, oh, the aircraft carrier can defend itself. Sure, it can. But when it has multiple missiles headed toward it, both underwater and above water, all it needs is 1 to hit the deck. All it needs is 1 to hit underneath and to puncture a hole big enough to have it go down and to have it be the largest submarine in the world. And that's what's about to happen. I'm telling you, the Americans, there are a lot of people in the Trump administration now who are basically saying, Mr. President, we don't know if this is going to actually work out the way we want it to work out. In the 12-day war, Iran struck the Zionist regime alone. Hezbollah did not get involved. Yemen, Ansar Allah, did not get fully involved. PMF did not get involved. Other groups in the region did not get involved. Imagine that now you have a full-fledged war and everybody gets involved. So you've got missiles flying from the north, from the south, from the east, maybe not from the west, but who knows? Could be some from the west too. I'm just saying that this is going to be something that has never been seen before in the region like this, with these kind of capabilities, with this kind of destruction, with this kind of firepower. So I think, first of all, it would be absolutely disastrous for the Trump administration. It would be a major L for the administration. They would be responsible for thousands of American lives lost. And then if the Iranian government still stands, what are people going to say? Then actually, it's going to embolden all of the multipolar world, this global south, to say, oh, once again, America's hubris has revealed that soft underbelly. And there you go. That's what's going to happen. And I think that also it will backfire on Israel. There could be a moment. I'm not saying it's a possibility in the extreme sense. I think that there's a slim possibility that also you could have a simultaneous rising up of Palestinians. You could see some armed factions also take part in the fighting in the occupied territories. So, in general, I think that we could see a regional conflagration unlike what we've seen before. And it could also spread, because if the UAE and Saudi Arabia get dragged into it, they also want to fight each other too at this point. So I'm just saying, people could take opportunity of this moment to take out their own, chunks of their enemies that they want to.
Yep, and that's what will happen. I think that's exactly what will happen. Also, guys, the cartel has effectively declared war on the state of Mexico. So who benefits from that? And what is that distracting from? Just tying that into the Iran thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, we've got some super chats. Thank you, Mo. Yeah, we're back. We'll be back again on Wednesday. I know the spaces are slop, but that's not my fault. I don't really host spaces. I hosted for you guys on Friday, so I did my part. Go yell at Trillion if you're upset. I don't know what you're thanking me for, or us for, but thank you so much for watching, and thank you for your super chat. Excited for this. Thank you. And thank you for being a new mod, Miss Shorty, your help. And guys, if you have a second, go over to her YouTube channel and definitely give that a follow. She talks about a lot of the really fun wee-woo stuff, like the Tartaria and all the stuff that I don't know anything about. But if you're into that, please go ahead and go visit her profile, or her YouTube channel, sorry. Hi from Michigan. Thank you for the super chat. Oh yeah, never, sorry, that's a mistake. New t-shirt. Yeah, maybe we'll make some Lutnick merchandise. Luckiest guy in the world with Lutnick's cackling face on it. Need to make jury nullification a household word. Thank you, Mickey, for, as always, my favorite stalker. I have so many stalkers. My favorite one, I can only imagine who that is an ex-jail for another few days because apparently Tom Cotton is easily offended. Oh, I hate all of these people involved in this, except for the person who sent the super chat. So fuck Tom Cotton, fuck Tom Cotton, fuck my stalker. But other than that, It was a great show.
Great show. Thank you all so much for being here. And we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday.
Trying to get Dugan, manifest it. Trying to get Dugan. Dugan has been spitting hot fire lately. So
I promise we will sit down with Dugan, that's for sure.
Okay.
But I think we might have another guest also lined up for Wednesday. In any case, I will be a little bit time zone change again, but we will
get through it.
We will do it. We will do it. We'll be here.
Guys, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We will see you around. That is all.
Yes.
Oh, wait, the outro. The outro video. We got an outro video.
Here we go.
Guys, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Here's your levity for the day.
They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.